welcome back, everybody. It is the Working Brother back at you with another talk. This time we've got Philip Druzhinin. Did I get that correct? Philip, how are you doing?
Somehow, some way, you did it correct. How are you?
Excellent. I'm good. Welcome. It's a pleasure to have you on. Thank you for responding right away. Since it's your first time here, I have to tell you, like I have to tell everybody who might have clicked on this video by accident, this is a comedy show. So nothing we discuss here has anything to do with reality, and it's all a bunch of jokes. So we're just discussing things that we found funny on the internet. And you yourself have a YouTube channel. 30,000 subscribers, and you go into some very interesting topics. Do you want to give us an outline maybe of what got you on YouTube and what you are into?
I'm not sure what exactly got me on YouTube, but definitely was something like watching videos and so on. So basically, when you watch a lot of videos, you end up working somehow with video. So that was my choice. I started to work video production, was a head of video productions, and so it was like politics channel on YouTube. So I started managing it also. I started from 30,000 subscribers and finished when I left the job around 150,000. So it was like my first practice of actual YouTube management.
So wait, you're telling me that you started your YouTube career originally in geopolitics, basically? In Russian or in English?
No, it was in Russian. I was just a video production head, and nobody was. We filmed a lot of videos on different topics, not only politics. It was like some social videos. Like it was a good video called Papy in Russian. It still is earning like a lot of views each day, I think, because when I was last checking how many views it got like 6 million views, I think.
Do you want to send me a link? Do you want to send me a link?
Just
come on, you have to send me a link.
Let's see.
And in the meantime, I'm gonna take a second, and I'm gonna thank everybody who's a subscriber and who's a patron and who has bought me coffees while you do that link thing. So yeah, thank you everybody who supports the Working Brother on what he does. Let me see here. Yep, I got it.
So basically, it's emotional video. There was a non-commercial project, and on the background there's a girl who just reading some letter to her dad, and so basically you see the emotions of the people here. It's like a guy who just received a message from his wife that he got a kid, so he jumped from the airplane or whatever
from happiness.
Another scene, like more people like also got the baby, so showing it to the guard of the immortal fire. And so another guy also received the message prior to his team scoring, and so on. So another guy with his pregnant wife, and a taxi migrant who is basically a different person, but he understands that they need to go to the hospital, and so he's like very serious and helping them, and so on. Very happy himself because he has kids too, as you can see. So it's like basic emotional video. And if you listen it in Russian, you supposed to cry in the end when you see all this information that is getting plugged into your brain. So it's like very emotional.
It's like, I think they call it tear jerking. I think they call it tear jerking. In like they pull the tears out of your with the emotions and the music and the visuals and whatever. Yeah. All right. So you're well versed in propaganda, is what I understood.
Basically, this video was about dads because it was made 11 years ago, I think, when it was started. All this new family agenda, parent one, parent two, and so on. So this was made in response in the future. It's like a jump in the future, warp speed production. You know,
We have a
so
we
you
have a
don't have
meme.
so you don't have this kind of stuff. This kind of problems when you can distinguish a man from the woman. So this was um, a past experience, of course. So I quit the job just because my team was some of it went to New York, started
Hmm.
studying in New York Film School, something, New York Film College. I don't quite remember. And I
Hmm.
was put back in the commerce. I mean, we're supposed to make money from and it was like a first year of so-called Russian Spring. It was 2014 when the Crimea case happened and the Donbass started happening in 2014.
Hmm.
And a lot of things got wrong. I mean, the currency started falling. So we had like a double reduction of Russian ruble in price in comparison with dollar, for example. So it was like,
Hmm.
start of this economic and so-called Cold War between the West and the Russia when all these sanctions started to implement, and so Russians suffered economic losses and so on. So me too. I also lost around like $10,000, I think, in savings that time. So it was quite painful first, but when everybody got used, we just kept going all these years, and still, I don't think sanctions work this much actually. They just
Yeah, that was gonna be my next question. This is a comedy show, and one of our favorite jokes here is Russian sanctions are working because, like, that's why there's 17,000 of them, because the first ones worked so well. So I wanted to ask you, like, I went to Russia maybe 2 years ago now, and I wanted to ask you in the last 2 years. So since after the SMO with the second and third and fifth and 17th round of sanctions, do you feel any difference?
Oh, actually, you see, the Russia is just the indicator of the world economy, actually, because it has a self-efficient ecosystem, I would say, because it has all the resources. It potentially has the capability to attract more people into country and create like some Soviet Union part two. I don't know. Um, Something bigger than the Russia itself, because every other country, you name it, just Japan, South Korea, China, Germany, France, Great Britain, they all lose demography each year. So population is reducing everywhere. Russia is kind of floating on the same level just because of these Ukrainian people that came to Russia after the operation started, and a bunch of migrants also been going here. We are the second in the world in the migration. So it's not like only USA gets all these
Yeah,
migrants.
but
We
the
also get.
the thing is the thing is about Russia, from what I understand, anybody born in the Soviet Union, in any country in the Soviet Union before, can claim Russian nationality now. Is that correct? That's I think that's like what I understand. Up to 91 or whatever.
You know that 33 years already from the independence in each of these countries. So each and every person who is younger than 33 years probably doesn't even know Russian, or knows it very bad, not as good as
I'm not saying
people
I'm
who.
not saying it's a good policy. I'm just saying that the policy exists. You know what I
No,
mean?
there's a bunch of problems on that, so I wouldn't say it's a perfect picture, but people can come, and a lot of people come from United States, a lot of people come from Canada, people start returning from Germany, those who left Russia and went to Germany in the 90s. Now, once they get all these passports from European Union and Germany and so on, once they live there for 30 years and more, and they
There's
return to Russia.
there's that
So I mean,
Russian there's that Russian channel Svilinov or some Svilinomov or something like that, who like interviews all these Russian people who returned back. So like, yeah, there's definitely a wave. And can you really blame them considering what the West is turning to, like from your perspective?
it was visible all these years ago, as I've said. we were responding to it in 2014 with some, messages that in projects that we were, operating with, like a project code, I parent. So I mean, like Je suis Charlie, that thing that when everybody was
Yeah, yeah,
Charlie, and so we
yeah,
were
yeah,
making I parent. I parent, I mean, je suis parent. So I mean, I'm for my kids and so on. So I mean, this is all was way ahead in back in the
Russian
past. So
propaganda, crazy, crazy Russian
yeah,
propaganda. I
and
told you, you have
now
nothing to
it's
worry about
obviously.
on this comedy show. You're gonna be a natural. The jokes write themselves because we're living. How do you feel about the fact that we could be living in a simulation, or that we could be living in, like, a movie, basically?
Well, who owns the simulation actually?
I don't
So
know. I don't, God, maybe, like, if you want to call him that. But, like, are you religious, by the way? Do you believe in God?
not really. I think the meaning of God itself is was infiltrated with wrong sense, wrong information. So people don't understand what actually who was called God and who was called Bog, the same word in Russian. So I
It's
think
the same in Serbian,
what
Bog.
you also have Bog, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's the same in Serbian, Bog.
Yeah, Bog means the second letter of alphabet, Russian alphabet. A is Az and Bog is B. So basically, Bog is one who sent us to the earth. So basically, it's our parents, our relatives from the past, and so on. So those who dead currently, and we know them for some reason or remember them for some reason for their, I don't know, uh, war glories, and I don't know. Each and every god in Russian mythology actually has some, place and certain occasion where he mentioned in the past. And English word god itself in Russian sound like a snake. So God is the snake.
God, God is
Yeah.
like something disgusting in
Yeah.
Serbian.
Also, meaning the snake, and that's where I mean the good word God has all this, background in Russian, and Russian is one of the closest languages to Sanskrit, which is supposedly the most ancient language here, along with
So is
British,
Serbian. There's a
German, and
video. Yeah, yeah. There's a
Serbian.
video. There's a
Yeah,
video with
and so
with an Indian guy. I was planning to do a tale about it. I will do that sooner or later for the subscribers who know what tales are and that are upcoming. But Philip, I
we
wanted
literally had
to.
a chat with a Serbian guy, and he was comparing all these words from Serbian, English, Russian, and I think Swedish. We also compared 4 languages. We had a chat with the Serbian guy. I'll send you the link. His name is Zaklio Sebumba. He lives in Sweden, I think. Would be nice if you also invite me for some, chat of yours.
Definitely, definitely.
So it's all the same roots. And so if you compare, cross-check different languages, you understand the original meaning of each word, because Russian
Hmm.
language still keeps most of these explanations of each
Yeah.
word. And that's
Um.
why I don't actually say this like this. When they ask me, "Do you believe in Jesus?" I might think about Jesus, and answer the question. But if you ask me, "Do you believe in God?" I mean, I
You have to
mean, I
define what we're
hear,
talking about.
I
Yeah.
hear, I hear about the snakes. Yes, I know they were here on Earth. They called nags, and I've been in Thailand for almost a year, and I've seen a bunch of evidence of these nags everywhere. And so these are the Thai gods, and they are really snakes. And if we actually read the Bible, we also hear about a snake, a serpent,
Mm-hmm.
who was kind of conflicting in the first chapters, right? And so he was helping people to understand who they are actually, as Satan was showing the people that they're kind of naked. I would say that's the original opinion, but actually he was saying that they are nugs. So Adam and Eve, in my opinion, if you literally read the Bible, serpent tells them that they are nugs, meaning they are god people, meaning they are serpent people. Because in Thai mythology, you see that the nags and they're serpent people with a lot of heads behind them. I don't know if you have seen this footage anywhere.
Yeah,
Just
I
take
know
a
the
look at it.
visual. I know the visual that you're talking about. Um,
So basically, he said them, "You are nags, guys. What are you thinking about? You are not people. You are nags." And in Russian, it's called like "you are nagi." Nagi means you are naked, but actually, if you go to the word naked itself, naked means you don't have anything on your skin, and that's also the quality or something that snake has. Snake people. Okay.
So, snake people, let's not get into reptiloids yet. We'll leave that for maybe our second or third talk. I just want to give a little disclaimer here to everybody who's watching, who may be a little bit surprised about some of the topics that we're going to get into. If you're here for the geopolitics, you can close this video now and, and leave, because we're going to get into some more obscure topics. Philip, one of the things that you've recently started putting up, do you want to talk about maybe the mud flood, or do you want to start with 3344 and work our way backwards?
I think we are continuing just the snake people topic because everything is going from that. So basically, you have the snake people. Yes, you have the snake people that were located in the southern Asia, right? It's basically Thailand, Vietnam. I don't know, Indonesia.
Time out. Don't the Japanese have a myth that they came from a people that came from a cave or something like that? That are like basically. Don't the Japanese have a myth like that?
Chinese have a myth that they are sons of a dragon. And so
Yeah.
dragons is the also the army of these snake people. They had these dragons, and if you actually look at Serbian calendar, which year is currently? Remind me.
In what calendar? It's
Serbian.
2024.
No, the real calendar. 7,000 what?
I have no idea.
So you live in Serbia, you don't know the calendar of Serbians?
I know it, but I don't know like what date it is. I know of the story.
Let me check. So whatever, you just go ahead and Google and find while I'm discussing this. So
All right.
there was a year. It's called the creation of the world. It was wrongly interpreted. It was creation of the peace, but peace is actually not just peace, because peace and world in Russian is the same word, sounds the same, but actually different. So peace is a peace treaty. There was a peace treaty 7,530 something years ago.
I'm looking for Serbian calendar, but like Google's not helping me. Like with 7,000-year-old
sucks.
settlement. Yeah, of course Google sucks, but it's like no surprise there.
In Russian, it's called Kalididar. Kalididar. In English, it's called calendar. So, Kalididar. Today is 7,532. The year of
Seven,
700, 532, 7532, I would say, if you want. If you just Google 7532 Serbian calendar, you also get the link to a Serbian calendar. Just try it.
One
At least
second.
every other Serbian I was talking to, every other Serbian knew it. So I mean, that is ridiculous. You don't know it actually.
Well,
So
I'm glad to learn new things all the time. I know of the calendar, but I didn't know that like there's a webpage where you can like find out what the relative date is. Continue while I try and find this.
basically, they were signing a peace treaty 7,532 years ago. The dragon people, the Nagi people, and the so-called Aryan or Asian people. So Az is the first letter of Russian alphabet, and Asia, is the land where Az were living. Other people call them Ants, A-N-T, or Ants, A-N. That's where man comes from. That's where all these Turkish toponyms come: Anatolia, Antalya, Ankara, and so on. And so all these N and Andrei, Anton, Anthony, whatever. It's a bunch of names that started with N. And so I researched that. And so N and Giant is the same type of race. They were like taller people than we are, like probably 3 meters in average, maybe even more. So we have a lot of artifacts with the different buildings which were constructed. So did you find Serbski
I
calendar?
Yeah, but I didn't find any clock, so to say, and like Google is not helping basically.
This information is getting deleted. So I mean, this is a censored information. People got to be in jail for this in Russia way back in the days, like 10, 15 years ago. If you were talking about this stuff, you get set up for a criminal indictment or something. So maybe they will send you a portion of drugs and find it accidentally, or maybe they'll find rifles in your backyard which you buried under your lawn. So I mean that
Hmm.
was the case. So basically, that's where year they signed the peace treaty. Now these dragon, reptilian, Nagi people, whatever you call them, and ordinary people, those red blood people, ant people, titans, Atlanteans, whatever you call them, it's all ants, the same people. So, and these people, red blooded people, kind of won the war, and it's commemorated in this um, horseman within, you call him Saint George, and on Russian
Hmm.
emblem you see them, the guy with the
The guy who's killing
spear,
the serpent. Hold on, let me get a
yeah,
visual here.
dragon, serpent, whatever you call them. Some say it's dragon, some say it's a big serpent, some say it's whatever. So basically, that's the symbol of this victory. And after this victory, as you can see, a lot of years already passed. We already have different calendar, we have different belief systems, and we had to before. We don't have this all this history that just disappeared, and it all was marking as an
When you
official calendar.
when you say history that disappeared, are you talking about like thousands of years, or are you talking about the hundreds of years that Fomenko mentions?
It's Fomenko just found the way to calculate it in via a computer program.
Do you want to
So he
explain a little bit to people who have no idea? Because like I know some of the things you're talking about a little bit, but like some viewers might not have any idea of like let's say hidden history or like the Tartarian story or like any of this. You know what I mean? So like do you want to give us like an intro to an intro?
so basically there's a lot of anomalies in chronology, but all the historians agreed upon Scaliger chronology, which was I think in 16th or 17th century. if I'm
And
not.
Scaliger is like basically two French guys who wrote all our history, basically.
They were Christians, I think. They were like monks or something.
I think they were
And so
French. I think they were French.
they were Christian monks, I think. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
they were servants of Pope or maybe Catholic Church. I'm not sure, but they were working in this certain narrative that of the Middle Ages when people were burning witches. This witch hunt was, everywhere. People were cutting heads and so on. So it was a lot of biological weapons were used in this time, called plague and so on. All these pandemics, each and so it's like basically they reset the culture, the knowledge, the people, whenever they wanted, and the expeditions of these people called crusades and so on. So basically, if you go back to the peace treaty times, two sides suffered big losses after the war. Even though we won, we suffered big losses, and plenty of area was destroyed. Plenty of cities was destroyed. Probably we had something comparable to a huge, big scale war.
Like a
Maybe the
nuclear
side.
war, like a nuclear war that's described in the Bhagavad Gita. And the Bhagavad Gita describes nuclear weapons, I believe.
Bhagavad Gita is described from the point of view of the guy who was sitting in the tank and was watching from this tank via this sight, muzzle, whatever
Yeah.
you call it. So he didn't see shit basically, and so that's why we can give his words whatever meaning we want because he didn't see anything, and so even that story was described from the person to person, from generation to generation, and somewhere, someplace, one guy started to write whatever the guy was telling, and that's how this book appeared actually. So it's like not the first hand information. I wouldn't trust it that much, but anyway, it was a big scale campaign between two sides, and both sides suffered a lot. We see a lot of damage. We see loss and drop in technology, going back to maybe Stone Age technologies, I would say. So basically to primitive things, but still these primitive things were so advanced that the people up to 17th to 18th century, even 19th century, knew most of the knowledge from back in the days, and still were good in mechanics. They were good in measurements, calculations, math, and so on. And philosophy was just the way to muddy the water, I would say. So all these inventions of philosophical stone, creation of gold from nothing, is all these Masonic spiritual, I would say, performances that were brought from the Middle Ages, where people started to create all these secret societies. Actually, was the process of resetting the elites. So they needed new elites, which were brainwashed and which were, perfectly fit to their intentions of controlling the creating the new world order, and they made it in the 19th century. So when they complete the full cycle of reset, when each and every territory was cleaned up and redacted, I would say, when information and books were burned,
For
on all the
foreshadowing,
facts,
foreshadowing
on
about redacted later.
all the facts were confused the way we learn now, and sometimes we just don't understand when we see a total copy from two different countries. When, for example, a Chinese story and a story from ancient Rome, where basically they just change the names of the characters and put the same story in the books. That's how all these histories were redacted. In even Bible was redacted heavily last time in 19th century. So
That's basically what you're saying that Fomenko helped with his algorithm to like put these
There was
things
a
in
guy.
perspective and find the similarities between some of these stories that like have been copy pasted throughout history. Basically, is what you're saying.
Fomenko find this, yeah, information too. But the first one who was asking question actually was the guy from Britain. His name was Newton. You know Newton?
Newton, like Sir Isaac Newton.
Yeah. He was the first who was asking questions about chronology because
I didn't know that.
he was calculating the moon and all this moon. How do you call it? When sun and
Astrophysics, I guess.
no moon solstice. I don't know whatever. Not
Oh, the like
solstice.
luminosity, how bright the moon is.
Now they were recording each and every time the moon was blocked by the shadow, whatever you call it,
Oh, an
затмение.
eclipse. Eclipse.
Eclipse, yeah. So everything was recorded, and he was starting to compare these years with the actual calculation of how eclipses go because he knew them. He was observing these eclipses. He know how the calculations should be proceeded, and so he didn't find these similarities. So basically, they were off 30 years, 20 years, sometimes 5 years, and it was called something like a new chronology only in 1950s. Before 1950s, several people also were working on this problem, even in Russia. And so Russian communists found out all this information and created a working group of Russian scientists, put two mathematicians in this group. These mathematicians, you know who was these mathematicians, Fomenko and Nosovsky. And so they had a task to actually confirm or not confirm this information, if the ancient chronology is false or not false, and so on, and to create some certain model which could be make it possible to actually tell the real history. That's what the object of this work was. And they were working for several years, and the Soviet Union, break up, and so they started to make a commercial project. And probably I would say they're a crazy printer because they printed so many books on this topic, so they made a lot of money. It was a good idea basically to debunk the chronology, but they started making money from it. That's why I'm not a good supporter of their work, because basically it's all about speculations. Their job was to confirm and not confirm, and not to tell us the real history, because the real history could be different. They are basing themselves on the edited documents, which they prove are totally false with the
But
chronology. So I don't know how can you print a book on that once, 3 times, 4 times, but not 82 times, right?
um, I'm sure there's ways and reasons, but the point is, I wanted to cut down the Fomenko theory. Basically, it says that there's like 700 years, like somewhere in between 1300 and now, that have been, made up, or between 700 and 1400, something like that, that have been made up, basically.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of their first books, which alter different information. So they say this and they say that. I mean, all we need to know is they proved, and the computer program that they created also proved that some chronology is false. And we should reconsider all chronology system, all history system, as I said. So, but basically, returning to what I found, I found
Mm-hmm.
also these similarities in this theory and my theory, because basically I see that people were advanced in some certain types of knowledge, like construction, for example. So
Mm-hmm.
they were creating different beautiful styles and buildings and so on, which still could possibly to visualize. So you can go and check out all these buildings, right? And they are so pretty, and they have a bigger size for bigger people.
And they were all built in 1890 or in 1860. All of them, everywhere
And
from New Zealand to Russia to like America to South America, everywhere.
not so simple. Some of the buildings were, uh, kind of reconstructed already. Some of the buildings were, for example, churches could be actually ancient power plants, and
Yeah.
now they are churches.
Yeah,
So
they're repurposed, basically, like used for something that they're not supposed to be used. Kind of like the when you say churches, the first thing that comes to mind is the Notre Dame fire, and then the other fire that we had like recently, which happened to
yeah,
be on like a mysterious date when there was a lunar eclipse and stuff like that. It's just comedy. It's
yeah.
coincidence, nothing to do with
Basically,
reality.
when you get any of this information to cross check, you start finding confirmation from different other sources. For example, you would find that there's a thing called atmospheric electricity. You can watch plenty of videos on YouTube how they get
Hmm.
the atmosphere from this drop of the altitude. And so
Yeah.
basically, all these big spire buildings could be collecting electricity, enough electricity for this whole power plant to distribute it somewhere. If they had, all these condensed systems and so on, so why not? Because when you look at the construction of different churches, they might be actually not the power plants themselves, but reconstructed, renovated buildings already. So some devices could be unplugged, taken out. Maybe you don't see the device itself. You see only, I would say, skeleton of the building. Okay, but still, there's plenty of
Hmm.
evidence that something's wrong with these buildings. Nobody would construct such big buildings just for praying, right? It doesn't make any sense because people can gather in smaller buildings with not with the ceilings like way up high, and not with the spires way up high. So it's not economically um, explainable because the
Yeah, yeah, they're not.
prices
There's gotta
and the
be. There's gotta be
construction.
another reason.
Yeah, so I mean, what they tell us, these historians, that they constructed all these pyramids for I don't know, for burial of one coffin, right? One
Mm.
sarcophagus, and all this huge amount of rocks and stones perfectly laid and positioned according to the stars and the Nile and all these south north lines and
Didn't they
the
find?
direct line.
Didn't they find like a pool of mercury in a pyramid?
I don't
In
know about pyramid, but they find a bunch of it on some buildings. Some buildings have still some devices with this mercury type. I never had any experience with that, so I can't tell you for sure. But
hmm
I heard a lot of people were talking about it, so might as well check online and see what they're saying. But what I say is the perfect position from St. Petersburg to Egypt, a perfect line through Kiev and other ancient cities, tells that people knew geography, they knew how to calculate, they knew how to position the buildings
They're
according
called ley
to,
lines, right?
yeah. So basically, what we have is a big drop from technology of ancient people to a so-called intermediate period when people were still using this technology, and then from the 19th century we have an industrial revolution when people stopped using this technology, started reinventing ancient technology as a new technologies invented in 19th century, like electricity, like steam engine, which we still use as a internal combustion engine, as generators. For example, gas turbines were also invented in the beginning of 19th century. I mean, we still use all these knowledge, which came out of nothing in 19th century. And so, I mean, that's when we started to reinvent stuff. And currently, if you watch some of my videos about comparison of ancient stuff and modern stuff, you will find out that plenty of stuff from ancient depictions actually looks exactly like what we have today. And I don't know if I can find you a link so people can see what I'm saying.
I think I might even have it open. Let's see
Ancient
here.
versus modern, I'd say. Ancient versus modern. Let's see if I can
I
find it.
watched it earlier. Yeah, there it is.
Everybody. Today we're gonna continue the topic ancient versus modern analogs.
I'll mute it so you can talk over it, but and I'll play it with a little bit fast forward, so you can have the visuals.
So basically, we have all these technologies that cannot be explained with the level of technology these people have. So we have tracks of something that is kind of shocking modern historians, and they, send it back to the time that people had only bronze tools from, very soft materials, which cannot be used in such large constructions, including pyramids itself. Once they were saying that slaves constructed pyramids. Now they are saying it's not slaves; they were mercenaries who were
It's
well
aliens, man.
educated.
It's aliens. It's aliens.
No, now they're saying it's 20,000 mercenaries which were working on shift 3 months, one shift, the second month, 3 months, another shift. So people like change. Some people go to rest, some people go to job, and they had a city in which these people were living actually nearby the pyramids. They located the city. That's not a joke. And they're saying that for 20 years, 20,000 people were working and so on. And this doesn't make any sense actually. With the tools they have, they couldn't have proceed anything like this. So basically, we have a comparison of different things here from different continents, which look pretty much the same, and show us some devices which are called cargo cooled when you go to an uninhabited, not inhabited, but maybe unknown island in Pacific, where people found an airplane from the World War II, and the pilot was dead. And they had all this special religion to pray something that has these wings and so on. The pilot had, and
there's a village where they in Africa somewhere where they worship the king as like God basically, because they like a long time ago some British people went there and they told them there's a king, and these people worship the king like a god. So like, yeah, this is the cargo cult like you're talking about.
So basically, these are some devices that were used on different continents, different countries, and they been kept as these national heads and whatever you call it. So this, for example, could be a device to transmit a signal or something. I don't know. So,
yeah, it could be like a VR headset or one of these things.
Yeah,
like,
I compare it to Wi-Fi router and so on. So something like this, like a transmitter, a big transmitter of Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi, 5G, whatever, something like that.
Nothing new under the sun, as they say, huh?
Yeah, as you can see, these called the bottles, but actually it looks exactly like binoculars. This is exactly like the belt. This is exactly
these are propellers. Wow.
propellers and so on. And so just
Even
go
a
ahead
Segway, huh?
Yeah, there's a bunch of this stuff everywhere. In India, in China, in America, you can find these so-called cargo-cooled depictions of different devices, which could be actually ancient interpretation of seeing something that you don't understand how it works, but you can, actually copy it as an art object, right? So create something beautiful, but actually it is not beautiful. It's just a copy of what they saw, and so on. So now you get it.
This is a really good collection. This is a really, really good collection. Because, like, I've seen many of these, but not so many in one place and with such good pictures right next to each other. Like, this is a really good collection of photos.
Yeah, I have several of these videos with bunch of depictions. So basically, you understand. So they had this technology level, then they lost it, and then we have reinvention of everything from the past. But somebody kept the knowledge all these years, right? So somebody kept the knowledge, somebody kept these books. Not all the books, of course, were burned. Some of these books still kept in the basements of different organizations and so on. So
Like the Vatican,
basically,
maybe? Maybe.
I don't know if that.
It's a comedy show. You
if
can
you're
say
not,
anything you want, man. You can say anything you want. It's a comedy show.
it could be anywhere. It could be even in Yellowstone. Who knows? So
Why? Is there something under Yellowstone? That's news to me.
just understand, anything that they prohibit to visit is some certain place where you can find something. That's why we cannot excavate anything without permission anywhere. That's unique. Right? You just cannot go with an excavator. You can do it. You can, of course, you can sneak and do it with the shovel, but not very much thing you can do with the shovel with this level of excavation you need to do. I mean, so basically, then we switch to the certain period in 19th century when most of the ancient architecture was supposed to be somehow, uh, somehow hide this ancient architecture and its connection to ancient technologies, because architecture in ancient times also meant a lot in technology, because it was all dual purpose. As for example, I have a video about the so-called reinvented properties of the red bricks, which they can actually collect and keep inside the charge, electric charge, right? So probably that's why all these ancient buildings, most of them, are built from red bricks, because this red brick technology was also used to store the energy inside the walls. It was like, a big way of keeping it without any batteries, without any pollution. If you understand what I'm saying.
I do, but I'm not sure people who might be here watching this comedy. In short, basically, there's a lot of old structures all over the world, including underground tunnels, let's say in Germany, where I've seen video, and they're made of red bricks. And these red bricks, there's like millions and millions and millions of them all over the world, including Australia, where they had no brick factories. There's no record of brick factories, let alone the capacity to make them. So that's a short.
Bricks, not only factories. The problem with bricks is how can you use all these tunnels without electricity? But knowing that the bricks can transfer the signal, can be a line of electric current, and could be feeding anywhere, any person inside of that tunnel, anywhere. That's how they had all these underground facilities without any electric or fire marks, because they already had the electricity inside it. So if you have some device with the night vision, for example, integrated in your glasses or whatever device you have, you don't need electricity at all. You have pure vision of everything inside the tunnel, right? So, I mean, we are reinventing all this stuff right now. And it's not like a very big secret that all these technologies come from the past. So I don't know if you understand what I'm saying, but red brick is not just a factory because it simply can be done with the local factory. But the volume of production of the bricks is a big question, of course, and the transportation of the bricks in so-called mud. Because everywhere you see the pictures, you see muddy cities with no roads, no pavements, and they constructing these big cathedrals from the scratch out in the field somewhere.
Philip,
For no reason.
It's been almost an hour, 49 minutes. We are what's it called? I've got this reset theory intro promo from your channel from 6 months ago. Should I play that as like a summary of this first? No?
Just don't confuse the people. If they want to watch, they can watch it. I think we just started. You said we already lost 2 hours. So maybe you have any specific questions according to what I was saying. Maybe so we can finish up the topic with maybe something in politics and currently what's going on. Because what I found back in the past is this reset technology is not just the word reset. It's it's a way to understand how they do it, how they can control us for so long, because probably when we lost the war, these enemies of ours infiltrated all the areas of governance, all the levels of governance with their so-called agents, whatever you call people that worship something that they believe. And these people actually, what they do is they ruin the civilization. And we can see it in different aspects currently. We can see it in aspects of ruining the so-called traditional
Family,
belief
yeah.
system, families. And now we have
Definitions
a lot
of anything. Definitions of anything have changed, basically. Even literally means figuratively now.
Yeah, so in 19th century we have a lot of pictures when the so-called cities have lack of people, like you see like big cities, streets and so on, but almost no people on the streets, maybe 1 or 2 persons. And they try to the historians try to explain it with the so-called exposure factor, but I was researching exposure of 19th century, and the pictures of 1861, they already had exposure in 3 to 5 seconds in this time. So I mean, there wasn't 30 seconds still pose to make a picture. That was already not working. And even with these exposure anomaly, you would still have tracks of people moving around as big, some type of lines of, something blurry on this. So basically, I've debunked all this information, and I'm saying that this is the representation of resets, when the cities were reset for the new folks to come. And so they send a lot of people inside. These people are controlled by so special teams that operated this. I call these people reset teams or bomberos. In some books, they were called firemen because they were, for example, Ray Bradbury book, Fahrenheit 450.
I was just going to say Fahrenheit 451, where they burned the books. There's a movie now, too. They made sure to make a movie so that you can know the myth.
Yeah. Yeah. So these teams were operating, they were erasing all what's left from the past, all these knowledges, all these books. So they were keeping track of each person, what they were doing, and so on. So that's why you see so many people in so-called black clothes and hats were just posing and staring at you. I had a lot of pictures of that. So I mean, like they were controlling the renovation of something. They were watchers of this process. They were controlling excavations of streets after the so-called mud flood, because mud flood, I think it was used to cover up some certain levels of certain buildings, so you cannot just go all the way down for several stories, because most of these buildings were connected with the tunnel system and so on. All these tunnel systems currently are used as subway systems, for example, in Moscow.
Philip, we'll get into Moscow. We'll get into St. Petersburg. We've got videos from your channel queued. I just don't like to go over an hour, because most people expect an hour, let's say, and then if we open up another topic, we're gonna go into 2 hours. So let's call this the end of this first talk. Thank you for coming on, and we'll end this recording right now, and then we'll go back and continue talking about some more serious topics. Let me get this music years are going. Philip, anything in short you'd like to say to people before we come back?
Forget about all this stuff. You heard nothing.
I told you it'd be a natural at this comedy stuff. Everybody, like, share, subscribe, all the good stuff. See you later.